Welcome, and thank you for attending our second annual Veterans Day ceremony. I'm Alicia Brinkman. I'm the Vice President of Student Senate here on the campus. Our ceremony today consists of music performed by the Southeast Technical College's band instrument repair students, local veterans sharing their stories of war and patriotism, community organizations who support veterans and service members, prisoner of war and missing in action remembrance ceremony to include the playing of taps, refreshments, and also there will be drawings for veterans. The Red Wing Art Association exhibit is here today. Staff Sergeant Quigley from the Minnesota Army National Guard brought his body of armor, so you can all try that on. And he also brought a really cool vehicle out there too. And at the conclusion of our ceremony, the speakers will make themselves available for your questions. And I just want to say thank you to the Red Wing Fire Department for providing that awesome truck out front with the really big flag. It looks really great. Thank you for that. I would now like to introduce the president of Southeast Technical College, Dr. Dorothy Duran.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here today. This is a wonderful celebration, and for all the community members who came out, thank you for joining the administration, faculty, staff, and students as we recognize both current and past veterans for their sacrifices for their country. I'd also ask you to join me to give our students a big round of applause for the wonderful music that they're sharing with us today. Although Veterans Day is now recognized nationally as a day to extend appreciation, it has a much greater meaning when we consider the history of the United States. Close to 245 years ago, a group of immigrants came to this country in pursuit of freedoms that they had not experienced in their own countries. When the British challenged their newfound freedom, they fought for a new life in this country. These founding fathers were our country's first veterans. Thomas Jefferson said, and I quote, "We were endowed with unalienable rights which are part of our humanity." It is our humanity that binds us together and makes our country such a wonderful place to live. James Madison included in the Constitution's Bill of Rights, and I quote, "a guarantee of free speech, religion, the right to keep and to bear arms, self-determination in regard to one's own property, the right to a trial by a jury by one's peers, and protection from cruel and unusual punishment." This is a small excerpt from a magnificent document. This level of humanity and individual freedoms has not been enjoyed in other countries like it has here in the United States since 1776. We have so much to be grateful for, and so often we take it for granted. It is amazing when we look back at our history and acknowledge that our forefathers from 2 centuries ago and those veterans who we honor today have sacrificed on our behalf so that we can live in a free society. We are a free nation because these men and women sacrificed so that we could continue to live safe and free. My son Paul, who is in the U.S. Marine Corps, he was a scout sniper, told me when he was fighting in Iraq, "Mom, I'm fighting for you, my grandma, and my family so that you will be safe and free." That made me stop to think that we cannot imagine the level of courage these individuals have had to experience in the face of danger. I ask you, how can we express our gratitude for so great a sacrifice? Let me ask you again. How can we express our gratitude for so great a sacrifice? We will continue to do our best to honor the men and women who are living today and remember those who have gone before us with grateful hearts. To the veterans, you are our heroes. Thank you. I will ask you all to please stand as Southeast Technical College's band instrument repair students play our national anthem once colors is presented.
Detail, halt. Present colors. Restart colors. Column left, march.
Please be seated. Thank you for your patriotic music. We will now begin our ceremony.
Hi, my name is Colin Samick, and I'm a member of the Student Senate. And some people might ask, what is Veterans Day? And many people confuse Memorial Day and Veterans Day. Memorial Day is a day for remembering and honoring military personnel who died in the service of their country, particularly those who died in battle or as a result of wounds sustained in battle. While those who died are also remembered, Veterans Day is the day set aside to thank and honor all of those who served honorably in the military, in wartime, or in peacetime. In fact, Veterans Day is largely intended to thank living veterans for their service, to acknowledge that their contributions to our national security are appreciated, and to underscore the fact that all those who served, not only those who died, have sacrificed and done their duty. We would now like to introduce local veterans who served in war to share their story of service to country.
It is with great pleasure to announce our first veteran, Jerry Borgen, retired and enjoying it, playing golf daily except when it snows. Jerry has lived, worked, and played in Red Wing for 85 years. His love for Red Wing is evident by all the committees and boards he has worked on. He was a staff sergeant in the United States Air Force, serving 3 years and 9 months, to include serving during the Korean conflict. He worked in personnel and made and maintained the records for the young doctors coming out of medical school. And in 90 days, they were made flight surgeons. He thinks that's where the phrase 90-day wonders came from. Jerry states life in the Air Force was good, unless you were a tail gunner. Married to the girl next door, Pat Quilberg, they have 4 wonderful kids and 7 fantastic grandkids. He also wrote a book, The Snuff Box Kids, about the early days at Wakuta, the history of ski jumping in Red Wing, but mostly about his family. Jerry is the treasurer of the Hiawatha Valley family beyond the yellow ribbon, and their mission is to make a veteran feel at home. At home. Please welcome Jerry Borgen.
Oh, thank you. I was laying sod on Highway 61 near Newport for Turner Landscape in the summer of 1950 when we heard on the radio that the North Koreans had crossed the 38th parallel and were invading South Korea. Harry Truman appointed General Douglas MacArthur to head the United Nations Army to battle the North Koreans. Since North Korea was communist under the watchful eye of China and Russia, and South Korea was an ally with the free world, Truman sent thousands of American troops to the Korean War zone. I was a little tired of laying sod. We had finished sodding the athletic field in Red Wing, and Turner got the bid to seed and sod the borders of the new highway through Newport. Turner had hired some kids from Newport, or New Prague, and they were all Bohemians, and they talked Bohemian. I figured they were talking about me, and I thought to myself, good, I will join the Air Force and help end the war in Korea. On December 27, 1950, I was 21 at the time. Herb Huffman and I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force at Fort Snelling. Raleigh Albright from Red Wing swore us in. We took the train to San Antonio and saw firsthand the Jim Crow laws in action. A colored lady was in our car, and as we approached Texarkana, Texas, the conductor asked her to change cars because this car was for whites only. She refused and was pulled. As we pulled into Texarkana, the sheriff got on and escorted her off the train. In downtown San Antonio, they had drinking fountains, one for blacks and one for whites. Same with public restrooms. I was caught up in 4 different race riots. Hard to understand by a white boy from Minnesota. We got off the train on December 29th at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, and it was 80 degrees. The guys from Minnesota, included me, were still in our heavy coats and overshoes. On January 2nd or 3rd, it was 0 in San Antonio, coldest it ever been. Our barracks was condemned because one of the toilets plugged up, so we got GI tents with a pot-bellied stove, and each got 6 blankets for our cots. I laid 6 sides on the bottom and 12 on top. And of course, nature called, and you had to go to the bathroom. It was cold, and our squadron was assigned to pass out overcoats as fast as we could to the recruits coming in, which were about 5,000 per day. My brother Tom, and many of you remember him, had enlisted right after the New Year and came through the line for an overcoat. His coat nearly touched the ground because he was barely 5'3". It didn't matter, it was cold and everybody needed warm clothing. I was only at basic training for 14 days, and a master sergeant from Randolph Field was looking for someone that could type and run an office, and that was me. We rode from Lackland to Randolph in a pickup. Because it was slippery, the driver hadn't driven on slippery roads ever, and we did about 8 wheelies on the way over. I made staff sergeant in about 8 months, had my own room in the barracks, never stood inspection, never stood a parade, went to the firing line twice, and both were with no bullets. The guy said, ready on the range, ready on the firing line, ready, aim, commence fire, and you could hear the clicks with no bullets. Luckily, we never saw combat. Life in the Air Force was good, unless you were a unless you were a tail runner on a B-29. I was assigned to the Headquarters Squadron Section School of Aviation Medicine. It was part of the Air University in Montgomery, Alabama. Our job was to take the young doctors just out of medical school and in 90 days make them flight surgeons. It's where the 90-day wonders came from. My job was to prepare and maintain their records. I typed their Form 66s, typed their efficiency reports, maintained their 201 files, and stayed at Randolph until September 1953, 3 years and 9 months. Our general knew that I was from Minnesota, he was from Pipestone, and wanted some Minnesota sweet corn. He put me on a B-25 that was going to Minneapolis to pick up some officers. I sat in the nose cone, found out why they called Minnesota the land of 10,000 lakes. We landed. I got to see my girlfriend and future wife, Pat Kohlberg, and flew back to Randolph with a bushel of Comstock sweet corn for the general. 2,400 miles round trip for a bushel of corn. Glad there was no C-SPAN or 60 Minutes at that time. The rest is history. Several years later, I was on the board of the Red Wing Area Seniors, and I started a project that produced 2 by 3 foot foam core boards of Red Wing Area veterans of World War II. I had read the book, The Greatest Generation by Tom Brokaw. I was fascinated by the bravery of the men that fought in the war to prevent Germany and Japan from ending our freedom and the American good life as we know it. Those boards are now on display at the new home of the Red Wing Area Seniors, which is called Pier 55. There are 52 of them, and it became a labor of love. To interview those men and women and have them recall the days when they were 18 to 25 years old, knowing that many would not survive, but willing to make the sacrifice to preserve our freedom, was kind of a challenge, because many did not want to talk about it. Several veterans still refused to have me make a board for them. They had seen too much. Many joined the service because they had gone through 10 to 12 years of severe depression and needed a job. Anything would be better than starving to death. The boards are all entitled The Greatest Generation Red Wing. You see 2 of them right there. And some fought in the Battle of the Bulge. Some stormed the beaches of Normandy. Some fought in the jungles of South Pacific. And one guy, a fairly big guy, was a tail gunner in Flack Alley Sally, a B-29 that left Tinian Air Base near Iwo Jima daily to bomb Tokyo and other key cities in Japan. Many of his buddies in other planes were killed or wounded in the daily raids. He saw the Enola Gay take off from Iwo to bomb Hiroshima with the first atom bomb. That person is here with us today, and to tell us more about World War II, let me introduce my good friend, Lou Chiquette. Lou was featured on the cover of the Today magazine some time ago, and I used some of the photos and copy from that article to make the board for Lou. Please welcome Lou Chiquette, one of the greatest generations veteran of World War II and my hero. Lou will tell you he was no hero, but the men that did not come back were the real heroes.
Thank you, Jerry Morgan, for the kind words. I don't know if I deserve them. I always think of Jerry and Tommy as old friends, and I also tell him and anybody who will listen to me that he's the greatest ambassador for Red Wing and the Red Wing area that you have, and we should appreciate this guy while we still got him, because we're getting a little old. Greg told me last night that I only have 10 minutes, and I told him, hell, I need that long just get warmed up. So I don't know how this is going to go, but I sure don't want to read somebody else's. I am a World War II guy. I'm not going to spend much time on how I got in there or all that. I was 17 years old at the time of the attack at Pearl Harbor, and so I had to wait a few months to enlisted in the Army Air Corps at that time, and the cadet program, where if you do well enough and graduate with a commission, you'll either be a pilot or a navigator or a bombardier. And of course, everybody wanted to be a pilot. Everybody wanted to fly a P-38 or a P-47 or a P-40 or the big one, the P-51. And so we went to another friend of mine, Corky Darrington. He and I went to the federal building downtown Minneapolis and went through the enlistment process and got it all done in one day. And we both were accepted, and we were thrilled to death. But also, when we made our last move there, we were told, they gave us a document saying so many people involved in wanting to be in the program that some of you will have to wait a few days, and so we'll contact you. So they didn't hear anything from them for a couple of months, and finally got called in, and it was a routine thing we had been away from them 6 weeks. We had to have another physical, and for some reason my left eye didn't perform well enough that day, and so they disqualified me and sent me home. And by that time I was 18 years old, but I was terribly disappointed and angry and upset about the whole thing. But I did go back and find some rather good paying job and save some money from my widowed mother, and enlisted in the Army, and then took the same test again and passed and got into the program and learned to fly soloed, and I was coming along pretty well. And then all of a sudden we quit going to the flight line, and a lot of ground school and officers training, and we wondered why those airplanes were sitting there without us. And then one day there were 2 squadrons where we worked, so we started out with like 200 people, and by that time some of them had been eliminated, and so there were probably 175 people still there. And they told us we have a meeting at 10 o'clock, gathering, and we're told that we were being eliminated from the program for the convenience of the government. I suppose you guys have heard of those things, but it was another disappointment. So those of us that were fairly high in the class were sent to Miami Beach for processing, and there we learned that we go to OCS or Gunnery and Engine School, and some of us decided we didn't want to fly a desk, so we gave up making an effort to get a commission, and went to Engine and Gunnery School in 6 weeks, and then we were whisked up to Lincoln Army Air Base at Lincoln, Nebraska, and some more processing, and then to the greatest spot in the world, guys, to Pyote, Texas. It was about as big as Bay City, and the base was just out of the village limits, and it was a big sign. It was Rattlesnake Army Air Base, and it was probably the end of the world. But we had some good training, and we were quite sure that we were going to the Pacific, because most of our flights were to like Trinidad and Puerto Rico, Cuba, or Bangor, Maine, or Seattle. Long trips, so we get used to that because that's the way it was going to be. So we then finished our RTU replacement training unit activity, and took a plane to Hamilton Field and did some more processing, got some more shots and that type of thing, and ready to leave the next day. We were sitting around the transient barracks, and and a clerk came in there with a clipboard. They're always important. Anybody's got a clipboard, you know, you listen to them. So the guy called my name, and I said, I'm over here. He said, come with me. Well, I said, yeah, I'll come with you, but what are we doing? And he said, you got to get your shots. And I said, oh, no, I had them yesterday. No, I don't care what you say, you got to have them. If you don't have your shots today, you don't go with your crew. Well, we fellows were pretty tight by then as a crew, 11 guys. And so I went with him and got some more shots, and we took off a couple hours later. And by the time we got to Hawaii, I was had a pretty good fever, and my arm was swelling up. And then we went on to Johnson Island and Kwajalein, and we got up to Guam late in the afternoon the second day, and put us in one of those, I think they call them a squad tent, you know, kind of a big tent, and the entrance was an opening that you had to stoop a little to get through, and so they said, put that sick guy right by the door, not too far from the train, and so that's where I slept that night. And when I awoke, it was a bright sunny day, and I glanced up through that opening, and I thought I saw something kind of strange. It was a long palm tree with some coconuts hanging up there, and a monkey tugging away on them. And I guess I thought I was really sick, you know, but it turned out it was a monkey, and it was a palm tree. and so I got well, and then we lost our airplane there. They wanted to make some modifications. We went up to Tinian, which was probably 150 miles. The Marianas is a string of islands, so the main islands are Guam, Tinian, and Saipan, and we were on Tinian. And they built the largest aerodrome in the world at that time with 4 runways, 8,500 feet long. And we began, so there was a little air raid that night, and we said, where the hell are we going? And we could see that somebody had been digging a ditch, so we jumped into that ditch. Really, the air raid didn't amount to much. A couple of old Betty bombers, they call them, and one of them smacked into one of our 29s and blew that up, and that was like a kamikaze. And then the next day, we got settled into a tent that held 3 crews of enlisted men, 21 people, and we were sitting there getting acquainted with the other guys, and Port Sergeant, something like Garrick over there, came in there calling my name, and I said, I'm over here, and he said, hey, come on, come with me. It's going to be briefing in about an hour and a half. You're going on a raid as a replacement tail gunner. And you might say, why would I be a tail gunner? I was 6'1", 170 pounds maybe, and there were guys in our crew when we were chosen that were smaller, but I couldn't convince any of those smaller guys to be the tail gunner. So I thought, well, what the hell? So through all my missions as a tail gunner, and I kind of liked it too. So I went with those guys on this mission, and it was quite interesting. It's, you know, it's a long ways lumbering up there from Tinian to that's like 1,500 miles with a propeller plane. You guys nowadays are accustomed with jets that really roll along, but you know the B-29 was redlined at 380, but we flew it at about 250, 280, and when we got to and we did a lot of good training, you know, films and stuff like that, and guys that had some experience before us, but we were riding along that night, and I didn't know any of these guys. I just learned their names when we gathered together before takeoff, and so it was a night mission. We were dropping fire bombs, and I noticed some flashes out here and out there, and I didn't want to ask anybody to be too much of a damn rookie, so I kept looking, and then I could hear a rattling on the skin of the airplane. I realized it was flak. Those damn Japs were shooting at us, and searchlights were chasing us. And they used to say, a searchlight on you is dangerous. 2 of them on there is very scary. And if you get 3 on there, they usually get you. So that was a learning process. And then I should tell you when I think of it, some bright guy, engineer type, I suppose, found that if you'd take foil and toss it out there at the time that these searchlights are after you, it will make them waver with their devices. And so the only guy that had a window was a tail gunner. So I had a pile of them around my site, and we would toss them out. I'd crack the window open a couple inches and toss them out, and they'd flutter off out into the air, and searchlights would start wiggling. So God bless that guy that figured that out. The B-29 had a wingspan of 141 feet. Fuselage was about 99 feet. We had 5 turrets. The front upper turret had 450s. The rest of them, the lower front and the 2 in the back, plus tail guns. So we had those 5 turrets. And now this was, the B-29 went on a drawing board probably in, 1939, 40 or something like that. And if you see B-17s and 25s and 24s, the gunners most of the time are in the waist, and they've got the damn gun right in their hand. And we never touched our guns. We were already using computerization, IT guys, and I've never heard of things like that. But we never touched our guns in flight. We couldn't. I could take the upper and lower turret away from the other gunners, and they could take my guns. So it all worked very well. And there was a gun sight about this high, so it would be right in front of me, and I'd stick my head into that thing, and there's one knob on this side squeezed these rads, we called them, that were a circle of lights, and if you squeeze that circle down and circle the attacking fighter, you're going to hit him. And it was that good. A 50 caliber, some of you guys probably know this, are not accurate. I mean, if you lock one in a vise, it's pretty hard to use a butterfly and put 2 50 caliber shells in a bowl of 6 inches. It'd be more apt to be a 1.5 foot. But that's fine with this opposing fighter plane, because he's dancing all over out there. You don't want to stay in a flight path so you could concentrate your fire on him. And so we just were very successful. We were young guys, had good coordination. Some of us guys were old duck hunters, and so we were pretty damn good at it. And we soon had those fighters staying out so far that it wasn't practical to be shooting at them. After 2 or 3 months, hardly ever got a good shot at any of them. They'd fly on a day mission, even at night too. They'd fly out there too far for you to hit them, and they'd fly at the same speed and the same elevation, and send that back downstairs to the artillery people and help them help them to find us as a target. That's basically how it all went. Then in, I think it was June, we started laying mines, and we were mining the important harbors in Japan. Japan has 4 main islands. You guys probably know that: Hokkaido, Honshu, Kyushu, and Rikukus. And So we mined the harbors like at Yokohama and Tokyo and Osaka and Nagoya. While I mentioned Nagoya, I got to tell you something kind of funny. I was pretty busy in all my life in the lumber industry, as some of you know. And so I was a sales manager for the largest hardwood company in the Lake States area. So I was a busy guy, and I had a tendency to do it my way, you know. My wife sings that song to me every once in a while when I'm being obstinate, I guess. But we had a great time of making things work, and excuse me. We chased all those fighters away from us, but then we started laying these mines. We'd come into a harbor, and we had to lay that mine exactly where they told us to put it, because we might in another month or 2 or 3 months be traversing the same place with our Navy and transport ships. And so it was a delicate operation, and there was the Straits of Shimonoseki is up by Iwata, where it's a strait maybe 2 or 3 miles wide, and an awful lot of shipping goes through there or went through there at that time, because as you know, Japan is not a large city, so a lot of their product, everything, rubber, steel, foodstuffs, anything to keep on making them a strength in that war had to, a heck of a lot of it had to come by ship. And that strait at Shimonoseki Strait was the devil. I went with a guy named Patterson as a replacement tail gunner one day, and my God, we flew through that strait, and they were shooting at us from both sides of it. And I didn't see how in the world we'd ever get through there, but we had a lot of holes, and some of us got hit a little bit, but nothing serious. But we continued with that program for probably 3 weeks, and then the Army and the Marines were at Okinawa probably in April of 45, and as you know, that was a tough invasion, and the kamikazes did a lot of damage to our Navy and to our fighting men also, and to our aircraft. And so the Japs were staging their aircraft from the Ryukyus, which is the closest to Okinawa. So then we changed our mission and did daylight raids into those areas where there were strips, where there are airstrips, and hindered their activity. And it worked pretty well. The B-29 was designed to fly at altitude and be capable of strategic bombing. In other words, what?
I heard rumor once upon a time, Lou has so many great stories, he can go for 5 hours. So,
Am I done?
part of a couple minutes, I know you did. But Lou's going to stick around after the ceremony as well, too, to share more of the stories, too.
That's the way the Navy does
I
it.
know, I waited.
Well, right. That's too bad. Maybe it isn't. I guess I've enjoyed this. I always do. I guess I like to talk, and I like to be with people like you and these guys over here. The Japs were a ruthless, brutal bunch of people. I hate them. I don't even want a Toyota to come in my driveway. There's a guy named Hap Halloran that you maybe have heard of. Hap Halloran, he's an outstanding motivational speaker. He was a B-29 crewman and was knocked down near Tokyo, and he was in Kampatai, you know, that terrible place. And he survived it. He was like 250 pounds when he went in there, and he came out like 140. but he did survive, and he's got a lot of good things to tell us. And we had him with us at one of our reunions, and he spent a lot of time with me that one day. And then at the end of the day, we were doing some cocktails and kind of having a good time. And I said, Hep, you've been around with me now for a couple of days, and today, all day. How do you think I'd have done if I'd have got knocked down? He said, with your smart mouth, he said, they'd have had your head off by sunrise. and if you guys, you people have read Unbroken by Hillebrand? Hillebrand? Yeah, read that. If you haven't read it, it's Lou Zamperini. He was a navigator on a B-24 and was in captivity with the Japs for, geez, I think like 3 years, and they did some terrible things to him, and that's not unusual. So Greg, I'll quit. I'll say one thing I believe is if you come back from war, and the only thing you bring back is bitterness from the hardships you've endured, then you didn't learn anything. And my military service was the most important thing I've ever done, and the thing I'm most proud of. And those are the defining years of my life. Thank you, everybody.
Wow, thank you, Lou, and thank you, Jerry. It's an honor to have you both with us today, and I would hate to be the guy that has to follow that. Let me just see where we left off here. Somebody closed my book on me. Our next veteran, Greg Cady, Lieutenant Commander, United States Navy, has been serving our country since 1985. In May of 1985, he enlisted into the U.S. Navy, attending basic training in Great Lakes, Illinois. He was an operations specialist, serving on the USS Barbie, sailing around the world on 2 occasions. His journeys around the world prompted his interest in diversity, leading to a career in teaching sociology and criminal justice at Southeast Technical College. In 1996, he affiliated with the Minnesota Army National Guard as a vehicle operator. Although he appreciated his service in the U.S. Army, his loyalty to the U.S. Navy surfaced, and he reaffiliated with the U.S. Navy Reserve in 2000, where he continues to serve. In 2004, he was selected for a direct commissioning as a Navy intelligence officer. In 2006, he was deployed in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom for a 1-year boots-on-the-ground tour. He deployed to Baghdad, Iraq, individually, without his Navy command, to augment with the U.S. Army unit as their intelligence officer. Lieutenant Commander Cady resides in Red Wing, Minnesota, with his wife, Leanne. He has 2 children, son Mitchell, 18, and daughter Taylor, 16, along with his stepson Alex, 17, who recently enlisted into the United States Marine Corps, beginning basic training on June 15th of 2015, and Scout, their family's loyal black lab. Please welcome Greg Cady.
Thank you. I don't know if you could hear it. First thing Lou says, I'm timing you. Thanks everybody for coming to our wonderful ceremony today. From just coming into the front entrance with the fire department, the band, we have several veterans, the color guard. It's countless, so it is absolutely amazing. And our country is at war. Yes, right now. We have over 9,000 brave men and women deployed to Afghanistan for our freedom. Speaking of war, many have often asked about my experience while deployed in support of Iraqi freedom. Today I'll share some of those experiences in honor of Veterans Day. Firstly, my wife, Leanne, I don't know if she's in the crowd somewhere. There she is over there. My wife, Leanne, about a year ago, she says, you know, I finally have you figured out. And I go, okay. She goes, you are so interested in everybody else's story, but you never share yours. So I paused for a moment, I smiled, and I said, damn, my cover is blown. She had me figured out. So today I'm going to share a little bit of that story. So I'm going to start in reverse chronological order. Hold on for a second. You got to stop your watch. This doesn't count. For those of you that know me, this backpack is my mobile office. You'll see me carrying it around wherever I go. It's getting a little worn out. So this past spring when I was serving in the Navy in San Diego for a couple of weeks, I decided to go to the Navy SEALs base on Coronado to buy a new one, another black one. I'm not real creative. But, so I was beginning to take the things out of my bag, and I had to pause for a moment. That bag was more than just a bag. It was a bag that I carried in Iraq throughout my tour. And in my tour, you may ask, what's a sailor doing in Iraq? I was asking the same thing. I'm supposed to be out at sea, right? In fact, they called us something. We made some t-shirts, Sandbox Sailors. You can see the aircraft carrier with Baghdad. So as Alicia was saying, I did augment with an Army unit. I even wore the Army uniform. So people would look, they'd say, how you doing, Lieutenant? Why is the Navy here? I'm just helping you out. It was a unique mission. A mission unfamiliar to the Navy. The President of the United States tasked the other branches of service to help out the United States Marine Corps and the United States Army. They were fighting a hard war, a tough war. We underestimated the strength and the sophistication of our enemy. And so part of that, once I got done with a hasty infantry training, I boarded a C-17. I was heading to Iraq. And we were going to land in Baghdad. And can you imagine a C-17, which is C-17 is a jet, it's a C-130 but jet propelled. So you can only imagine when you descent, you are actually a target. So I don't know if any of you have experienced this, but we did a combat landing. You literally do a corkscrew. So you're like this going down, so it's quite scary. We landed, and for those of you that watch movies, you ever watch that movie, We Were Soldiers? Mel Gibson in it. And Mel Gibson, when he got out of the chopper, the scene, you could see his foot touching the ground. I did the exact same thing. As I stepped foot on Iraq, I was there by myself, so I didn't have any troops to be responsible for. Literally, I can remember myself. I bent down, and literally I grabbed the sand and gravel. And I told myself, training is over. I'm at war. And as I looked up, you could see smoke from all the explosions, gunfire, the heat. You could hear the imams praying over the mosque loudspeakers. It was real. I was assigned to the Extrajudicial Killings Task Force as the Battle Watch Captain. Our task was to identify those who were responsible for executing and torturing of so many Iraqi citizens. During my tour, our small task force was responsible for categorizing over 8,000 corpses to identify method of torture and cause of death. We would collect intelligence based on our findings and develop target packages on those whom we felt were responsible for the torture and execution of so many Iraqi citizens. Now, going back to this bag. It was this bag that I placed top secret target packages in. I'd hop on a Black Hawk helicopter and fly to various Special Forces base camps. I briefed our target packages to Special Forces, Delta Force, and Navy SEALs at the time, who took it for action. Actually, I think I still have some sand in there if you want to see. I don't know how much I have in there. But on December 19, 2006, I found myself sitting back on the C-17 on that same tarmac airport in Baghdad after serving a year. As excited as I was to be coming home, it was also unsettling. I felt very selfish. I still heard the same sounds of war, leaving before the mission was complete, leaving my task force, but mostly knowing that 823 U.S. heroes sacrificed their life. And over 1,800 were severely wounded during my tour. Knowing they did that for me and my family, knowing they did it for you and your family's freedom. That's what is most important about me and the story I want to share with you. As citizens enjoying the daily freedoms of our wonderful country, please remember we are still at war. Yes, as I speak, we are at war. Please remember those veterans that have gone before us to support and defend the freedoms of our country. The freedoms of our country, and please remember those service members who are on duty right now. That's the story I want people to remember about my tour in Iraq. Remember. Thank you. How much time do I have left? All right, you want to come up and use it?
Our community is fortunate for the contributions of local organizations that support veterans and their families. One of those key organizations is Hiawatha Valley in support of Beyond the Yellow Ribbon. Please welcome United States Army retired Sergeant First Class Lance Garrett.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. You hit it right on the head. And our mission with Beyond the Yellow Ribbon is changing. It started out, and anybody that served knows this, been on active duty, if you're married and you're deployed, that place where you go from base or post supports your family. They give your family everything they need to keep your family going and keep you as a soldier focused on the battle and the mission. One thing that we as a country didn't do well, and that's why one of our commanders in the National Guard figured this out, is part-time soldiers, when they leave, they don't have the same support that an active duty soldier had. No one to take care of their family. If a car broke, it's simple things like shoveling sidewalks, maintenance on cars, maybe helping to maintain the home. Those are things that we fall in to do with Beyond the Yellow Ribbon, and we've done in the past few years. Obviously now our mission's changing as we leave Afghanistan, and we have a drawdown going on in the military. We've got a lot of service members that are coming back off active duty back to their home communities. So our mission changes now. What we're looking to do is be able to identify veterans, and we did one last night. Thank you for that. That was really good. A person that's going to school here at the college. We want to identify those veterans in our community that may need our support. What we can do is we bring a host of different things to the table, one of which is to connect veterans to the right sources. Obviously beyond the VA, there are other things in the community, and maybe moving back and finding a home and finding a job. So we're connecting with businesses here as a matter of fact, we're going to be bringing Capital Safety on as a Yellow Ribbon partner here in Red Wing. So there'll be a contact for us if we hear of veterans that are coming back need employment. We can be a direct contact to Capital Safety, as an example, to maybe get this veteran or service member hired on. Finding a home, those kinds of things. As Greg alluded to, coming back out of battle it's a shocking experience, and it requires other veterans to come together and support the veterans that are coming back, and that's what we're looking to do. What do we need? We need volunteers. We need people to help us. We're a nonprofit. We need money. and those kinds of support to help us to be able to do our mission and go on from there. One thing we do, one thing we've done in the past 2 years is we're part of the, St. Bridget's does their, no, it's not St. Crispin, does the tree thing every year at the holiday stroll. We've always got a tree, decorated it, put gifts under it, and then that tree's been auctioned off, and part of the funds that go from that auction and all the tree and all those gifts goes to a veteran that we identify in the community. So we've identified a veteran in this, or a veteran's family in this community that we're going to give a tree to this year. So could Leah Pigs come forward? Yeah, come on, Leah. Her husband serves in the National Guard, and she also has a son that serves in the National Guard, and another one in the audience over there. It's going to be a young Marine. I just know that's how it's going to go. So, yeah, exactly. So we're gonna give you a tree this year.
Thank you.
We already have that all picked out, and so we'll be contacting you in the near future here after the holiday stroll to be able to deliver the tree to your house.
So very
Okay.
grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Also, we have one more gift we want to give this year. Will Rachel Beach come forward? Rachel's a Southeast Tech student, and she's a U.S. Navy veteran. She's got a little 4-year-old son, and we're going to be giving you a gift at the same time. So, yeah, exactly. So we got something for your son. Just want to let you know that. Thanks for your service. You bet. Absolutely. Wonderful. So our big thing is finding veterans. We need to know who veterans are, and that's not an easy thing because we're a proud group, veterans, aren't we? And sometimes we don't even think about the fact that we might need help or could use a hand. And so that's our mission is to find veterans in the community and serve and support them. Thank you very much. And also then one of the other things that we do in this community, the Red Wing Arts has brought a great thing this past year with the sculpture that's back here. If you haven't been down to the park and sat around that sculpture in the evening, especially when the sun shines down, you need to do that. It's beautiful. This organization has helped Minnesota veterans with an art project this past summer, and in fact, Cynthia Weitzel is one of the veteran-matched artists who will share her artwork today at the ceremony. So I'd like Art and Chap to come up and talk a little bit about what you've done with the Arts Association.
Thanks very much. My name's Chap Aiken, and I'd like to yield my time back to Lou. I really enjoyed listening to his stories, and I think there are just some wonderful things that that whole generation accomplished, and we're very fortunate to have you still around. On the board of the Red Wing Arts Association this past summer, we had a event that took place to honor the veterans who have served this country and to those veterans who have transitioned back to civilian life. This program was called the Minnesota Veterans Experience. It was organized and actually conceived by a former student here in Red Wing and the director of the Red Wing Arts Association, Dan Gaida. The two of them got into a discussion about that difficulty that sometimes faces soldiers coming back and the experience that they have gone through. And he wanted to express some ideas that he could share with the rest of the community. Out of that came the Minnesota Veterans Art Experience. And the program brought in some 40 veterans who experienced a week retreat down at the Villa Maria and had an opportunity to express themselves through art. The student that initiated this felt that art and the expression that it offered helped him in his transition back into civilian life. Along with that, one of our community members, many of you know Peg Hansen, suggested to Dan Gaida that we leave something lasting to the community for this effort. And that particular lasting piece was this sculpture that was created by my friend here, Art Kenyon. And you might be familiar with some of Art's work. One of his murals is in the hallway there of all those trees. That's Art's piece of work there. This piece is, I'm going to stop talking and let Art talk.
Thanks, Chap. We kind of double up like this on the arts in Red Wing. It's kind of fun. I just want to say what a privilege and what an honor it's been for me personally to work on the development and the design of this sculpture. And but even more than that, what an honor and a privilege it's been for the Arts Association to use the various art forms as a healing force for our military. A lot of people look at art as as something you do in your spare time or a nice hobby to have. But to a lot of us in the arts, it's much more important than that. And I think the Veterans Art Experience is a perfect example of how you can use art in all its forms to help heal and really give a good quality of life to some of our military. So if you could bring that up just quickly. Here you go, Chuck. I'm just going to explain just quickly, because some of you have probably been down there. It's down in Levy Park. What we wanted to do, the challenge here in leaving a legacy through sculpture for the military and the people in the military and those who have rotated out, it is to, first of all, devote some time to both male and female, because we know the women in the military today are doing so much to help out. So we wanted the male and the female to be presented. And then because there's so much focus on active duty, we also wanted to present the story of rotating home and some of the sacrifices that our military goes through once they become civilians and rotate back into the community. So we have two strong slabs of steel. They're 11/16" thick, so it's not going to go anywhere. 5 feet wide, 9 feet high, and it has a 4-foot base to it under the ground. So the next time the river comes up and tries to wash away the park, our sculpture will stay put. So the other piece that we wanted to show was that once you've been in the military, whether you stay in or you rotate out, those two lives that you lead never separate each other. As some have said today, their military experience is some of the strongest experiences they've had in their entire life. So we wanted to make that we offset the two plates. So as you walk around the sculpture, you see the interaction between both cutouts. So the two never separate. And there's 2 feet in between each slab, again, to indicate the strong relationship between the experience and life you had in the military and what you go through when you rotate out. So that's kind of where we wanted to go with this. Putting it down on the river where it's peaceful and tranquil, and pitch it at an angle so it heads upriver. And when you look through, you can look through both slabs where the cutouts are. You can see the flag on Bay Point Park furling in the wind, and you can also see the turn in the river. Because as Wendy Martinson told us, who came for the ceremony, she said a lot of these veterans, when they get out, we've all gone through it. We're never sure in our life ahead what's around the bend. So this epitomizes that as well. So that's kind of what we were looking at when we put this together. And we hope that a lot of folks will go down there and view it. As he said, in the afternoon light, it's absolutely beautiful. And we put it on a little bit of a knoll, so it's elevated above. And Chaffee has done this is a prototype over here. Chaffee has done a really nice dramatic photograph, because besides the plates, we've also got, we also put on there 2 quotes, one for the military side, one for the civilian side, explaining those activities and those emotions that our military goes through, both during combat and during civilian life. So thank you all for letting the Arts Association have this opportunity to really give a standing tribute that we hope will be here for many, many years to come. Thank you.
One last thing, Art and I are both veterans. Art is, of course, Army, and I feel sorry for him, but, and I served in the United States Marine Corps. I'm going to pass around this picture of the sculpture so you can all take a look at it. And if you haven't seen it, do stop down. We're quite proud of what we did for many of our service members, and if you have a chance, go down to the park. Thank you.
We have one more community program, and that is the Veterans Assistance Coordinator. Please welcome Mark Larson.
Hi, I'll be really quick. Some of you may have seen me around here. I was here on SOAR Day. My name is Mark Larson. I work for the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs. Not the VA, I'm not federal, I work for the state. The VA itself is such an unwieldy bureaucracy that Minnesota's formed a pretty extensive network of people like me that work directly for the state and county veteran service officers. Every county has one veteran service officer. And all of ours together, kind of our goal is to make sure that the veterans that are coming home, that are going back to civilian life, are taken care of in every aspect of their life. My particular emphasis is education benefits. All the colleges in southeast Minnesota I work with to make sure that the vets get, and sometimes their family members, get the best possible benefit they can from their service. We work with a lot of other groups, and Beyond Yellow Ribbon is one of the great ones. When I was gone over to Iraq, knowing that someone was taking care of my family made a big difference. It gives you a little bit of peace of mind, or a lot of bit of peace of mind, so that you can focus on getting the mission done and getting home. There's other organizations out there like MACV that will help a veteran that's down and out, at risk of being homeless, sometimes actually homeless, and get them back up on their feet. The DAV has a really extensive network across the state that people donate items for especially mobility disabled veterans. And I can go on and on and on. The one thing about all of us that are kind of in this industry is all of us are kind of good at one part of the puzzle. Like, I'm pretty good at the education benefits, but none of us could possibly be an expert at everything. So we kind of work together. I know who the people are in the other organizations, so if you come to me and I can't help you specifically with the type of issue that you have, I am definitely going to put you in touch with somebody that can help. So to all the veterans out there, thanks for your service and happy Veterans Day. If you see me here, feel free to stop and talk to me. If it's you that's the veteran, a family member that's a veteran, a neighbor that's a veteran, your favorite dog at the dog park's owner that you talk to occasionally that's a veteran that you think might need help, just stop and ask me, and we'll get you started or get the veteran or the family started in the right direction. So, thank you.
We will now conduct the prisoner of war and missing in action remembrance ceremony. Please stand and focus your attention on the table.
There are more than 83,000 American troops missing in action from World War II, Korean War, Cold War, Vietnam War, Iraq and Afghanistan War. We will not forget them. As you're focusing on our table over here, veterans and service members may salute during playing of taps at the end here. As you entered the room today and you notice a small table in a place of honor, it is set for one. This table is our way of symbolizing the fact that members of our profession of arms are missing from our midst. They are commonly called prisoners of war or missing in action. We call them brothers. They are unable to be with us this afternoon, and so we will remember them.
This table is set for one, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against the oppressors. Remember, the tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of the member's intentions to respond to his country's call to arms. Remember.
The single red rose reminds us of the families and loved ones of our comrades in arms who keep the faith awaiting their return. Remember. The red ribbon, tied so prominently on the vase, is reminiscent of the red ribbon worn on the lapel and breasts of thousands who bear witness to their unyielding determination to demand a proper accounting of our missing. Remember.
The lit candle symbolizes the upward reach of their unconquerable spirits. Remember. The Bible represents the strength gained through faith in our country to sustain those lost from our midst. Remember. A slice of lemon on the bread plate reminds us of their bitter fates. Remember.
Salt upon the plate is symbolic of the family's tears as they wait. Remember. The glass is inverted, for they cannot toast with us today. Remember. The empty chair awaits their return. Remember.
All of you who have served with them and called them comrades, who depended upon their might and aid and relied upon them, and for surely they have not forsaken you. Remember. Remember. Until the day they come home, remember.
You may be seated. Thank you. Thank you, John Huth, for the playing of taps. Next Tuesday, On the 11th month, on the 11th day, on the 11th hour, I ask you to stop and reflect, to honor the sacrifices of our veterans and service members. Thank you. Alicia.
On behalf of the Southeast Technical College and the Student Senate, let's give thanks to our veterans and service members for protecting the freedoms of our country. A special thank you to all those responsible for coordinating this patriotic event and participating. Please view Cynthia's artwork and put on Staff Sergeant Quimbley's protective body armor if you'd like to. Also visit Renee at this table right over here for Beyond the Yellow Ribbon. They would love to have you volunteer or just talk with them, speak with them. They do wonderful work for our community. And in closing, our band will play the United States Armed Forces service songs. Veterans and service members, when you hear your service song, please stand or raise your hand. Thank you for attending our ceremony.
United States Army.
One last special thank you to the following people for supporting our event. Instructor Greg Cady, Red Wing Student Senate, Lou Chiquette and Jerry Borgen, Southeast Tech Band Instrument Repair Band, John Huth, Beyond the Yellow Ribbon Committee with Lance Garrick and Renee, the Red Wing YMCA, Ace Hardware, Godfather's Pizza, Kelly's Bar, the Beer Stew, Burger King, McDonald's, K-Wing Radio, the Red Wing Fire Department, the Red Wing Arts Association, and to the City of Red Wing. We thank you so much for coming to our event and helping to make it successful and remember our veterans. Thank you.